Now, I'm very excited to have Brenden as our first podcast guest. It's very special to me because it represents the way that iRacing and racing in real life are so connected. I've grown up watching Brenden at my home track, Langley Speedway. Now he actually has 2 wins in our Intensity Racing League Short Track Series on Wednesday nights. And before we start talking to him, I just want to give you a little bit of information about him. He is the driver of the 03 late model at Langley Speedway. He's raced in the ARCA Menard Series, the Cars Late Model, Stock Car Tour, and he's also raced in 3 Denny Hamlin short track shows. And he is also the 2020 Hampton Heat 200 winner, which is one of the most prestigious late model races in the country. And he is also the 2020 Langley Speedway late model stock car champion. And to cap it off, Speed51.com named Queen the number 10 late model driver in the country for 2020 now. So without further ado, let us welcome Brenden Butterbean Queen. Hey, Brenden, thank you for joining us. How you doing tonight?
Hey, thank you, Atlee. That was great. Some of those stats I done forgot about. So thank you. That's probably the best introduction I've ever had on a show. So I appreciate it. Appreciate y'all having me here. And it's going to be fun.
Yeah, we were just talking. You've been running in our Intensity Broadcasting Short Track League. I know you won this past week at Bristol.
Yes, it's been kind of tough trying to keep all my plans together over the winter. Different people trying to get me to run different things. We ran in the virtual snowball derby, which was fun. I was on speed 51, and then done a couple other things. Definitely have had fun running in the Intensity Short Track League. And then I also did this past week a St. Jude charity race where I got to race with Matty D was in there, Garrett Smithley, Elliott Sadler, Hermie Sadler, a bunch of different individuals from the upper series and a couple ARCA and late model guys and some road course ringers. So I'm kind of all over the place, trying to stay ready to get back in the real car and balancing college and all that. It's a lot, but hey, we wouldn't want it any other way. It's life in the fast lane.
Yeah, all right. So Brenden, this is Joe. Hey, so you got a couple of awesome wins in our series, but in real life, what's your most coveted win? Would you say?
Definitely the Hampton Heat 200. That was by far the biggest win of my career. I've finished second in that race before, and I've had a couple of top fives, but to finally win that race, especially with this year, having old school all over the car and everybody that's pitched in to help me, to finally put together a statement where I felt like, my name in late model racing was there and I was a contender, but I hadn't won a big race. I hadn't won a lot of races, and I needed to do something to get my name out there. And I feel like that night I made a statement that we can get it done in one of those big races against the best. And I feel like I finally put my name in a different category that night.
Now, a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about is very recent, but my question for you is, how did you get started racing? I know that your dad raced, if that had anything to do with it.
Yeah, when I was about, 4 or 5, obviously my dad was getting out of racing. He used to race, and I really wanted to race, but they knew how expensive it was because my dad was getting out of it. And, he actually kept on to his old trailer, and we still had the shop and all the tools, but they threw me in T-ball for a year. And let's just say I was the kid that broke my nose playing T-ball. So that didn't go too well, and I constantly was race car. That's all I cared about. I always had a Matchbox car in my hand, and finally, when I was 6, I got a go-kart and started racing. I actually started in the kid kart division at Langley, and then after a season of that, I went to a little bit more real go-kart racing. I went to Dixieland and started racing on the dirt, and that's pretty much how it started, and it went on from there.
So I know you've run Langley, and I was doing some research before the podcast. I know you've run Daytona in an ARCA car as well. Out of all the tracks you've been to, What's been the one that's kind of stood out in your mind? What's been the most impressive track for you?
Man, that's such a tough question. I've been asked that. I mean, obviously you got to say Daytona. I mean, that's every kid's dream is to race Daytona. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. Daytona 500, the Xfinity race, truck race. Daytona is the biggest event in NASCAR. That is our Super Bowl. So when I got to go do the Daytona race, just to walk in the gate as a driver and know like I'm getting ready to make laps here, that is huge. But I can't narrow it down to one track. Obviously, Daytona is the biggest and probably the fastest I'll ever go, but I'm a short track guy at heart. So, like going to Myrtle Beach, a track that is now closed, I mean, that is a cool place to race. And, as long as I'm racing, I'm happy. I love everywhere I race, but I mean, Daytona is probably the biggest, I would say. I mean, how could you not go with that?
Yeah, and as a Northeast, I'm from the Northeast, so I'm up in Massachusetts, but I vacation down to Myrtle Beach almost every year, and that was the thing I always looked forward to, is going down to Myrtle Beach Speedway, because just the history of the track too. So the fact that it closed down this year, it's real heartbreaking, you know.
Yeah, and my situation was that race was always on my birthday. My birthday is November 21st, so the Myrtle Beach 400 was always my birthday weekend, and it was a getaway. We would normally go down a day early, and the team would kind of have a day where we all just hung out, and whether we went, shopping or went and did something, it was just kind of like a bonding thing. Like we all got a day, like we're on the road, which is already fun, but we there's so many memories. I could have a whole night of a podcast telling you Myrtle Beach stories. So some are appropriate, some are not, but that's the racing life,
Yeah,
So memories will last me a lifetime.
and it's not like you can't find something to do in Myrtle Beach. I mean, there's a golf course on every corner, so.
We've been down there a couple of times recently for cheerleading. So, Brendan, I got some other questions for you. You said you've been a busy man. You said you're balancing college now with your racing career. Is there something you're looking past racing to do? What are you going to school for?
Well, it's kind of a realistic, tough situation for me because I always thought like, hey, I'm gonna be a NASCAR driver. Like
Right.
that's what I want to do. I got about 15. I was winning. I went late model racing. I was running decent, but I wasn't winning. And nobody was knocking my door down wanting me to drive. And then as I got a bigger name for myself, teams were calling me. But at the end of the day, it all came down to, we'd love to have you in our car, but it takes this much per race, and we need you to bring this much per race. And I'm like, if I get that kind of money, would I be smarter to run one truck race or run a whole late model season competitively every week? You could go run one truck race and cut a tire down on lap one, and all right, see you next week if you got money.
Mhm.
So I decided to really focus back on school because I had kind of dropped out of college when I went and did the ARCA deal. And after that all went south, I went back to school and I'm working on my engineering degree. I'm about like 75% done, 80% done with it. So hopefully I can get that done soon. And I just want to be able to have something to where, I have good benefits and retirement and I can afford to race my late model when I want to and have fun. And whether it's full-time or a part-time schedule, I still want to be able to race even if it's not at the top level.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. An engineering degree is going to get you far. And man, when you're done, let me know. Hopefully I'll be in a position to help you out.
Hey, I would definitely love to hear that. I try to keep all my connections around. I don't know exactly what I want to do with it, but I think it's a little bit easier to find something with that degree than some of the others.
For sure.
Now, to keep on the route of mechanical engineering, how does that knowledge of mechanical engineering translate to racing, and how does it help you?
Yeah, I mean, everything in racing is turned into so much technology and engineering and geometry. And unfortunately, I haven't really kind of I've gotten into stuff more theoretical than what we're actually doing. I mean, I work on the cars at the shop every day in between classes and on my days off from school, but I understand the racing side of it, and then now I'm trying to learn the theoretical side, and they come together at a point, but the theoretical side is on paper, and until you do it on the car and go to the track and do it, just because it says it'll happen on here doesn't mean it's always going to do it on here. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but you can kind of see how they like come together. It's interesting the farther I get into it.
Yeah, touching on that too is you got a couple NASCAR drivers through history have had, engineering degrees that have actually helped themselves on the track. I mean, you look at Ryan Newman back in the day, he was always qualifying up front and he was always sitting with his engineers going, "Hey, we got to do this to get the car faster." And that's where you got the nickname Rocket Ryan Newman because he was always either front row or second row. And I think that engineering side of things definitely has a little bit to do with that.
Oh yeah, it was cool. I got to work with Cliff Daniels. He's actually the crew chief on Kyle Larson this year, and he was with Jimmy last year. He drove one of my late models in 2018 at the Thanksgiving Classic, and he came to my shop for a week, and I've gotten to work with him on my own cars because he was driving one, and just talking to him and hearing his ideas and his theories versus our old school way of doing things. It was very interesting just because he knew I was going to school for that too. It was just, that's another memory. I got to work with somebody that's on the big stage on Sundays. So that's another cool thing I got to do and learn a lot from.
That's really, really cool.
Brenden, I got one more quick question for you, and then I'll let Atman close it out. But so I'm looking at you, and you got this rocking haircut going. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the mullet, man. So last year when we were shut down and weren't racing, it was about March or May. It was whenever I won the Blake Morris race on iRacing. I was getting ready to go see the King, Philip Morris, the next day to do the awards for it and everything. It started out as a joke. One of my buddies, Jason Manny, he wanted to cut my hair into a mullet, and I had never had long hair in my life. I always had a buzz cut, like never long hair. So it had grown because of COVID. I hadn't been able to get it cut. And he's like, let's cut a mullet. Let's cut a mullet. So I'm like, okay, whatever. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I let him cut my hair and I went to bed. And I woke up the next morning and I'm like, what in the world did I do? I had to go all the way up to somewhere in Richmond up that way to meet Philip. And I go up there and I had a hat on, so nobody really saw it. Well, as it got closer to race season last year, I still had the mullet and it had gotten longer. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start the year out. Well, we ran the best we ever did at Langley. It helps that we had a different car, a newer car and everything this year. Don't get me wrong. But I was convinced it was the mullet because as soon as I won the Hampton Heat, the second race of the year, everybody's like, dude, the mullet looked good in Victory Lane. Like, you can't cut it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep it. So we take the points lead and we're leading the points and the hair's getting longer. So got down to like the final week, I started going and getting it professionally cut into a mullet. So when I show up at the track, it would be all slicked back and had the sides hanging out. And I won the championship. So they're like, are you going to cut it or not? I'm like, no, I'm leaving
No,
it.
you can't.
Yeah, I'm like,
you can't do that.
I can't leave it. Well, then they start calling the fans the Mullet Mafia. So I got a logo now that says the Mullet Mafia. And now on my stream, which I Twitch on the Butterbean 03, in case anybody wants to follow me, but I call everybody that follows me the Mullet Mafia, and the logo pops up. So I've had a lot of fun with that, and everybody's like, are you going to cut it over the off season? Well, here it is. It's still there. So I guess we're going to roll into season 2 with the mullet, and it's the longest it's ever been. I mean, it's to my shoulders back here, and hey, I'm going to get her trimmed up on the sides for opening night, but it's ready to rock. I said the mullet's worth about 2/10 because it flows in the air.
Business in the front, party in the back. Here we go. Let's go.
Exactly.
Mississippi mud flap looks good.
The
Now,
mud flap.
To close it out, I mean, we've been talking a lot about real life racing, but on an iRacing note, how did you get into iRacing, and how does it like help you translate into real racing?
So back in 2008, I was. How old are you now, Atlee?
I'm 12.
So I was probably younger than that. I was probably 10, 11, 9, 10, something like that, maybe 11. But it was 2008. I had always been playing the NASCAR games on the PlayStation and Xbox, but somebody had told me about iRacing, but it wasn't big or nothing. I mean, there was some people on there, but it wasn't like it was today. And I started watching YouTube videos, and I saw Dale Jr. played it and some other people, and they had legend cars on there. And that was my next step, was I wanted to go legend car racing. So I ended up getting it in 2009. So I've been on there for 11 years now, and I've gotten to see how far the cars have changed, the tracks have changed, the graphics just from then. And it was, trust me, iRacing was way advanced in '09 compared to everything else. But nowadays, it's with the esports going on, and when the COVID hit, it's really taken off. But I can say I was there from the like way back in the beginning, and it was totally different. But it's helped me a lot as far as, like, I went to South Boston once. This is a quick story for you. I blew up on lap 1 of practice. I got no practice. We changed the motor. I started 28th. I'd never been there before. I finished 6th in the race. And somebody said, how did you know anything about it? The only experience I had at that place was iRacing. So just having the visual, where to lift, where to put the car. I mean, it's iRacing as close as you can get without being in the car. I mean, obviously it's not the real thing. You're not sitting in here sweating with a heater on you or nothing like that. But I think from a visual side, it really helps you, because you can go to a place that you've never been and pick up on banners or wall markings or lines, and it'll cut that much time off of learning the track.
That's awesome.
Wow, Brenden. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing so much about yourself and your racing career. And it's impressive what you have accomplished. And you're only 23, so you still got a lot more to go. And I can't wait to get back to the track myself. Again, opening night, is April 13th. So excited for that, and hopefully we'll see you soon in the pits.
Yes, and I am aware that you are racing this year, so good luck. And or you're racing bandas, right?
Yep.
So good luck in your new adventure. I will. I'm sure I'll see you out there with Riley. Hopefully, you can get up there and give him the bumper, because he's my buddy, and give him some competition. And thank y'all for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks,
for coming
Brenden.
out.
Thank you.